YouTubers, and welcome back to another CAFcast. Today we're taking a look at the ASUS X99 Deluxe. This is the motherboard that I have chosen for my How to Build a YouTube PC series on the X99 platform. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, there's a link in the description to the series, and if you've come from those videos, welcome, and let's take a closer look at the X99 Deluxe. So, the motherboard itself, as I have explained already, is on the X99 platform. It says it right on the box there. There are a few motherboards of the X99 series that the ASUS do. In fact, there are around about 6 if you include the newly released Sabertooth Tough series of motherboards that have just been released for the X99 platform. It took them a while to actually get those out. This is kind of the middle of the range, perhaps slightly higher than the middle of the range. You have from your left to your right, because we're doing this for you after all, the X99A, which is the standard platform board, the X99S, which is pretty much the same thing, but it includes the more sort of high-end cooling systems that they have on some of the North Bridge and the South Bridge and bits and pieces like that. The X99 Pro, which again is the same kind of thing as this, but it has a Wi-Fi card built in, but only a 2-port Wi-Fi as opposed to a 3-port, so perhaps arguably not as reliable, but we'll have to wait and see if this one is any good. Then you have the X99 Deluxe, and the Sabertooth, I'm not sure where that comes in relation to the Deluxe, but I'm sure it's probably going to be quite similar when it's released in the UK. Currently it's not out in the UK at the time of recording. It's an American only board at the moment, but it is very, very good. I used the Z97 Sabertooth board, the Mark 1 version, and that has been very good, and is one of the reasons why I'm still using ASUS today. And then finally you have the Republic of Gamers board. That is an E80X board, which will not fit in my Define R5 case that I have chosen for this series, but it is a higher end. It has just some really kind of balls to the walls, extreme performance for some parts, like some improved LAN chipsets and bits and pieces like that. All the boards across the range this year though have got the 5-way optimization built in, including the Tough series, which was one of the significant drawbacks of buying a Sabertooth board last time round. You couldn't do that automatic overclocking, which I personally like to do, especially with ASUS, because what they do is they run your processor right up to the extreme, and then they start to bring it back a little bit once it finds its limit, just to give your CPU that kind of like little bit of headroom to make sure that the reliability is there as well, which for me is pretty important. I know that I could spend all day trying to dial in a decent overclock, but for me personally, I don't have the time, and to know that this board has that really reliable overclocking feature, which we'll be looking at in more detail. There is going to be another video which actually explores the overclocking process, which again will be listed in the description for you. We can take a look at that in more detail then, including the BIOS settings and making sure that we're all completely set up on Windows 8.1, and then taking us through the overclocking process itself. But anyway, to do the unboxing for you guys here, we have a little flap which tells you a little bit about the board itself, and also has a little bit of sort of window for you to have a look at this board as well, which is pretty cool. But I'm going to go ahead and open the box for you, because that's probably the most important thing, unless you guys want to just see. We also have some more additional benefits put onto the board. One of the really cool things about ASUS boards this time round is they all have this ASUS OC socket, which is a socket that has extra CPU pins to be able to make sure that you have a more kind of consistent throughput when you are sort of punching in voltages for your board, which is really cool. There's a fan extension hub, an M.2 X4 riser, which we told you about before, and then there's also the wireless card as well. We'll go through that all in more detail once we've actually opened the box up, but I think that's probably the next most important thing for us to take care of. So, don't forget that when you are building a computer, it's really good to have one of these motherboard trays to rest on, to be able to actually do the build itself. So I'll be keeping this case, this box out, and actually building the system on top of that, which you will see as we go through into more detail. Small amount of support there to make sure it doesn't move around in shipping. And then the board itself inside this fantastic packaging, which is really good to see. Now, Currently I'm not earthed, so I'm not going to take it out right now, but hopefully as I speak to you right now, there's a nice glorious shot of the motherboard itself. If not, there'll be a one for you in more detail later on. But as you guys can see, it's exactly like it says on the actual case itself, which in fact I'm going to have to static proof myself before we go ahead and do that. So let me just quickly do that. Nice and straightforward. And I know you guys want to see it, so here it is. This is the board itself. It's actually really, really attractive. They've gone for this really nice, oh, it smells new as well. They've gone for this really nice kind of black and white aesthetic with a black PCB and white cooling components that you can see as well, which is really, really awesome. Again, we're going to go into that in more detail as we go, but for now, we'll pop that to one side and take a little bit of a look at the other parts that are included in the box here. So this motherboard tray actually comes out, and as you can see, there are quite a variety of other bits and pieces that we'll get out for you one by one. So to start off with, quite nicely actually, we have an additional thermometer, temperature sensor for the board itself, which can be plugged in directly to the board and take a separate sensor reading for your board, which can show up either, I doubt it might be in the BIOS, so I might be wrong, but the main place that you're going to be looking at is the AI suite, which is the kind of conglomeration of software and firmware bits and pieces that are able to keep you informed about the board itself and how it's running. It's quite good to see them include one of these, because you might want to take temperature reading of the hard drive bays, for example, to see how hot they're running, or you might want to see how hot the power supply is running, or the air around that, or even just the ambient air of the case as well. It's really small and hard to show you on camera, but it is there, and it is very useful if you need it. We also have some of those fantastic little cheat sheets as far as the hard drive LEDs, power LEDs, speaker ground, plus 5 volts, HDD LEDs, yeah, power group, all that kind of stuff are all here for us, and also a USB 2 one as well, which gives you the option for the ground, etc, etc. We personally won't be using these because we're going to be plugging everything directly into the board because we know what we're doing, but it is quite useful if you're doing a first build and you don't know how to do that. You basically, what you do is you plug this little board part here, which hopefully you guys can see. It's very, very tiny. Again, I'll see if I can find a picture for you or something. Plug it directly into the motherboard itself, and it lists all different parts and where they go, and then your case, should you choose a decent case or a decent enough case, I don't think you'll be able to find one that doesn't do this these days, will tell you exactly what each of the cables is for each of the parts on the front of your actual case itself, and you can just plug them directly in. ABC, building PCs these days is like building Lego, so yeah, there's that. There's also this, which is the M.2X4. It's actually essentially is another riser. The way that the M.2X4 slot works on the X99 Deluxe, and also on the S, I believe. I'm pretty sure the A and the Pro are the only two that don't do this. They have a vertical M.2 slot, which actually is quite a cool idea because it means that it is getting a bit more sort of airflow to it and it's keeping it a bit cooler. We're using the XP941 from Samsung, the 512GB version, when most motherboards actually allow the M.2 board to stay horizontal. It slots in and then gets screwed down, and it sort of has a couple of millimeters of clearance, you know, and it sits down on the board. The problem with that is that a lot of the space that's actually on the board that you might use for TPUs or any kind of like chokes or anything like that is taken up by this kind of M.2. So you can only have very small components underneath that, which can be a bit frustrating in terms of being able to work with engineering the board. So one of the really cool things that they've done is obviously had the M.2 slot in vertically, so they can fit much more feature set, a much larger feature set directly onto the board as well, whilst still maintaining that ATX form factor, which is really, really good to see. So we also have the dual band Wi-Fi moving antenna. This is a 3-port connection one, which is interesting. Again, I'm not quite sure. If somebody knows in the comments, if I haven't managed to figure it out by the time that I release this video, why this one has 3 connections to the Wi-Fi and the the Pro, sorry, only has 2. That'll be really interesting. It does say 3T 3R dual band Wi-Fi antenna, but that's what that is there. It actually has a small magnet built into the back of it as well, which is quite a cool little feature, because then you can just make contact with the side of your case, obviously trying to avoid hard drives and bits and pieces that perhaps you could damage by putting that somewhere like that, or anything metal essentially, and have it sort of like mounted to the side of your case that way, which is quite nice. Or alternatively, this part here actually does bend backwards, and you can just sort of sit it on a desk, which is probably what I'm more likely to do should I ever need to use a wireless antenna. We also have a large collection of SATA cables, which is always nice to see. They provide you with, it looks like four SATA cables that have a right-angled connection for a case, which has very small amount of leeway in terms of the amount of room between the actual hard drives themselves in the actual cage, and also the physical back of your case, which would be the right hand side panel. So yeah, and it also has 4 sort of like regular ones as well, which is just straight connection. The other connection is not right angled. The other connection is just a flat to go straight into your motherboard, which obviously makes sense because you're just going into the SATA chipset straight down into the rubber grommets to feed those cables to where they need to go on your board itself. So those are very, very useful. As always, I've got lots of those now, so we'll definitely be able to make sure that we can do anything that we need to do with that. We also have this, which is very, very cool. Again, hopefully I've got a picture up on the screen for you, but this is a 3-pin, it's not 3-pin, it's a 3-connection fan system block, PCB, I don't know what you would call it, but it's a proprietary ASUS built piece of hardware, which allows you to have an additional 3 fans built into your system. So say for example, all the ATX boards on an X99 platform should, unless there's one that I'm not familiar with at all, should have 6 fan slots. You have CPU to optional, and then chassis 1, 2, 3 and 4. Generally that's how all boards are set up. This allows you to have an additional 3 because it connects directly into the, I think, again I'll have to double check, connects directly into the board and then gives you an additional 3 ports as well. Either that or it connects into 1 and then has 3 on there, which again would still give you the extra 3 that you're looking for, which is pretty cool actually. So if 6 fans isn't enough for you, or you're doing what I'm doing and running a liquid CPU cooler, so your liquid CPU cooler motor needs to have a fan slot on its own, and you're running kind of like on 5 rather than 6, and that's not quite enough because you want to have 4 fans in a push-pull on your CPU cooler or something like that. This is a really good addition because it means that you just have the ability to run that couple of extra fans that you need, and also it is fully compatible with the AI suite as well, which means that if you need to have any kind of additional connections and still want to use AI suite, which has the really advanced fan control technology to allow you to draw your own kind of like temperature graphs and things for temperature versus fan acceleration, then you can use this as well. It's completely supported, so it's going to just be additional fans that the system is able to pick up and recognize automatically, which is a really cool idea. So I may be using that, not sure yet, we'll have to wait and see. We've got a nice standard black motherboard panel here for the rear of the PC case. No frills, nothing like that. Just a standard one with actually some little LEDs for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connections as well. So I guess they are actually on the board, which it looks like they are, which is very nice actually. And then obviously, as you can see, We also have the USB 3 connections. There's a million, 10 USB connections, I believe, on this system, with the dual gigabit LAN as well. We are swimming. We are literally swimming in USB ports, so that's absolutely fantastic. Great to see that as well. We also have a four-way. This is a three-way SLI. SLI-S, it's called. It's essentially just those ugly brown SLI connection things that you get. If I ever run SLI, which I probably do once they fully implement DirectX 12, and there's actually a point in running it with the memory pool and stuff like that, which we'll talk about in more details if you guys want to hear about that. Then we can take another look at that later on. But essentially, we have just the standard bridge for a three-way SLI, and I think this board is actually able to do a four-way SLI as well. I think I might be wrong actually, because I'm just looking at the board now and it doesn't look like that will work. I think it's actually might only be a three. I think it might only be a three, but we'll have a look. In fact, I can tell you right now. Let's double check. It is. It's a three-way board. So there you go, guys. If you were planning on running 4 GTX Titan X's, then unfortunately you're not going to be able to do that with this board. But you can still run 3, so I'm sure you'll be able to get by. There's a few bits and pieces for screws. I assume that this is to attach and maintain the PCB for the fan risers, because it has got some small screw connections, and these have little sort of like L brackets. So I assume that goes somewhere on the board. We'll look at that in more detail as we do the actual build for the computer itself. And then finally we have what looks like some kind of proprietary fan connection cable. Yeah, this is the connection cable that's going to connect the fan board onto the system itself. I think a 14 watt it says on it, so I'm sure that's going to be, that sounds about right. I'm not sure though, we'll have to double check about that one. And finally we have the resident connection of ASUS stickers, performance stickers, congratulations on collecting your board, some motherboard stuff, some user guides, the fan extension installation guide, which is very, very useful, and then just some exclusive feature sets which we can talk about in more detail, which we already have, I think, covered pretty much everything that comes on the board, which is pretty cool. Dual intelligent processors, 5-way optimization. These are not features that are unique to this board. This must just be unique to the X99 platform. The Wi-Fi engine, Wi-Fi Go, bits and pieces like that, Cloud Go, which we're not interested in. Remote desktop is obviously going to be quite useful, but apart from that, that's pretty much everything, because this is going to be like an always-on system as usual. So anyway, the unboxing part of this video is now taken care of. We will rejoin you guys once I have installed the board itself. We'll take a look at it inside a system, and then we'll do a quick wrap up for you guys. And don't forget, if you want any more information about anything else that we're doing today, like overclocking the board itself and setting up the BIOS, they are going to be separate videos, and they will be in the description of this video and the how to build a YouTube PC video series. So make sure you check those out, and I'll see you guys in 5. So the motherboard has now been installed, as you can see in our system right here, and it looks fantastic. I know that not everybody is a fan of the Noctua fans with their two-tone brown technique that they're running, but the black and white is obviously a significant benefit, and the fact that we actually have white PCI Express covers on the back here just complement the motherboard itself as well. Personally, black, white and 2 shades of brown I'm absolutely fine with, because Noctua fans are second to none. Installation of the motherboard was absolutely fine. Sitting the CPU on its socket was the same as any other CPU that I've installed, and I've installed quite a few. However, not one quite this expensive. I think that was probably the most nerve-wracked I've been in any of my PC builds that I've done. You might even get a chance to see a little bit of video footage of me actually installing that, and treble, quadruple and even maybe octuple checking my work to make sure that I'm definitely putting the processor in the right way, because the last thing that you want to do is destroy an £800 CPU. Fortunately, everything went very smoothly. The BIOS is very configurable and actually works really well. One significant benefit to the X99 Deluxe that we're using here, I can't vouch for other boards that ASUS creates, but this board in particular was plug and play with M.2 SSDs, which was absolutely fantastic to see. A lot of people on the forums are having problems with actually installing their M.2 SSDs and being able to boot from them natively. But it works absolutely fine in this. I managed to install Windows 8.1 no problem at all, even before I got my RAID array working. And then after that I could change over to a RAID rather than an AHCI option, and it was working absolutely fine. We've got the RAID array working in a matter of seconds, which is fantastic, and probably a benefit and a testament to the fact that we're using SSDs. The actual volume creation process was very straightforward and very quick, which is more than I can say for rotary drives that I've used in the past and had to wait 3 or 4 hours for a volume to be created. Apart from that, memory has been checked first time, no problem at all. Processor was checked first time, no problem at all. And the overclock that we've managed to get on this system, running at 100% in all cores for between 15 and 30 minutes, is 4.5 gigahertz throughout. That's every core at 4.5, which I think is a significant improvement to what we've been using in the past, and also is a testament to the quality of CPU that we have sourced. So I'm really pleased with that. Apart from that, the only negative side that I can say is that I found my production model had a small dent on the North Bridge casing, the aluminium casing, but having a look underneath and making sure that the North Bridge cooler was absolutely fine before carrying on and plugging in and turning on, all seems to be absolutely fine with no problems whatsoever. Obviously, if I was a picky man, I could take it back to the retailer and get a replacement, no problem at all. But to be honest with you, it's just a unique quirk that I think only I'm ever going to notice, because it's a very small dent on the very edge of one piece of aluminium, and I don't think that really matters at all. But I guess that is a testament to the courier rather than a testament to the company, because the motherboard was very well packaged, came with ample bits and pieces, as you have already seen in the unboxing that we've done, and everything was pretty straightforward. I'm very pleased with how well this board has been built. The other really cool thing as well is that there's no need for any additional metal plates like you might expect to install on a Z97 or Z77 board, because the X99 chipset boards, the 2011 V3s, actually have a metal plate built into them directly. So the CPU cooler actually mounted directly onto that plate, which made the whole process and the whole board feel a whole lot more secure. And I think because of that, I felt more confident in my choice in chipset. So I think that was a huge plus for me. And I'm used to using the Sabertooth boards that ASUS make with their custom shrouded aluminium things, or aluminum if you're American. And I think this is up to par to that, if not better, because of the whole UI experience. The software that the actual computer uses to connect to the motherboard and do the overclocking, again, is very straightforward to use, and probably the best that I have ever used so far. There may be differences when I start looking at some things from MSI and EVGA, various other companies, but for now I think that ASUS really does top their game out with some really high-end software that complete the experience for us. The natural overclocking on the system was very straightforward. The fan control, as you can hear, is fantastic, even though I had to use Y splitters for the intake and exhaust on the radiator, which is obviously the push-pull configuration that we have set up here, was nice and straightforward and took that into account instantaneously. So we had no problems getting 800 RPM on an idle system for the ambient temperature in the room, which, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty much silent, and if I was sleeping in this room, then that would make it absolutely fine to sleep in the same room as the computer that I'm using. So very pleased with that. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope this has all been very helpful to you in the choices that you're making for your X99 chipset. If you want any more help with how to build a YouTube PC, or just how to build an X99 chipset PC in general, don't forget to leave a comment down below, like the video, and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me in tech content. But until next time, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all soon. You've been watching the Cafcast. We hope you have enjoyed the show. Don't forget to check out all of our other videos. Oh, and be sure to subscribe to us if you like what you see. That way I'll know to make more and that you really like me. So, you've been watching the Cafcast. We hope you have enjoyed the show. Don't forget to check out all of our other videos.